What's good, YouTube? This is Boxingwave, and we are back, man. All right, before we move forward, we got some breakdowns to do. I am kind of ready to do Manny Pacquiao against Mario Barrios, which is this weekend, so I will be recording that right after this video. Before we move forward, I wanted to speak on Shakur Stevenson one last time, okay? Shout out to everyone that was here over the weekend. We went live. And I did do a quick recap of the entire card the following day. But I want to speak more specifically for Shakur Stevenson and about that night. And I also want to talk about moving forward because this division now is actually pretty fresh. At this point, it seems like Gervonta Tank Davis is the oldest senior guy there. And even though he's not that old, he's probably like 30 right now. But we'll talk more about him later in the video. But listen, as far as a fight with William Zepeda, right? It was almost everything that I thought it was going to be. And when I say almost, I think the one key thing that I thought was going to happen that did not happen is that Shakur would eventually stop him. I felt like with the amount of openings that William Zepeda did, I felt like Shakur at some point would at least have enough power to put him down. At least if not stop him, knock him down a couple of times. I was thinking more of him landing a body shot that would put him down. But William Zepeda was throwing so many flurries. I understand the dangers. He didn't really go to the body as much as I thought he was going to do. But overall, it was a good performance. I've said before, as far as skill set, I think he is the closest to Floyd. He's not Floyd Mayweather, but I do believe that he is the closest to Floyd, and I'm going to stand on that just mainly because defensively, offensively, the reflexes, the quickness, the boxing IQ, there's things that he do that reminds me of Floyd Mayweather. Is he doing it at the level Floyd Mayweather was doing it? Absolutely not. Floyd fought way better people. Uh, Floyd fought, and Floyd at one point in his career had power, but still, even in the later years, and I'm talking 147 and those couple of fights he had at 154, when I heard interviews of Oscar De La Hoya, of Shane Mosley, and other fighters that had asked him about Floyd and his power, even those guys, and we know that Oscar absolutely hates Floyd Mayweather. But even with that said, Floyd Mayweather, even at 47, had power. Oscar said it. He said Floyd Mayweather can punch. Was he knocking out the guys at 47? Nah, not really. But he got a couple style. Victor Ortiz, he stopped him off. That weird situation. He did stop Ricky Hatton and stuff, but he wasn't like just stopping guys. But I think when Floyd was dominating as a welterweight or even as a super welterweight a little bit, I think there was I just think that he hit harder, and we know that he had brittle hands. Like Shakur Stevenson seems to have brittle hands. I think with Shakur Stevenson, I do believe that the talent is there. I just think that there are periods where he's just gonna go in these fights and he's gonna be dominant. And he's just not gonna put him away. You know what I mean? I think what made this fight a little better and more entertaining than some of the other fights that he dominated. Like in the breakdown, I said Haratunia fight wasn't a bad fight. It's just that what made everybody react the way they did, when like Cam and Mace talked about him on a podcast saying he was boring, it was because Shakur really didn't. He didn't go into a different gear. He doesn't go into a different gear. Like he can, but once he goes into that gear, that's it. And when I say he can, when we seen the Padley fight, and again, this is Padley we're talking about. This is not the very elite, When he fought Padley, he was clearly outboxing him. But there was a point, like I think the fifth round, where he started to walk Padley down, started going to his body heavy. And you knew he wanted to get the stoppage, and he worked for it. I think he works for the stoppages. I think he tried to stop William Zepeda. I think he tried to stop Haratunia. There was other fighters in the past where I think he literally tried to stop them, but he just couldn't. you know, because he's just not a puncher. And I think that's the criticism that he's always going to get. I'm not even criticizing him for not stopping him. I just know how the public is going to view him. They're going to always view it's never going to be enough because he's going to be so dominant in certain fights. They're going to be like, yo, just stop the guy already. And me and my dad was talking about this on a live. I don't know if if you guys were here, you remember I was trying to tell my father, I was like, yo, not for nothing, but Floyd in the later half of his career was pretty much doing the same thing every Saturday. And people used to complain about it back then. I know people don't tend to have great memory, but Floyd Mayweather, when he was fighting Robert Guerrero and certain fighters where he was just beating them up but not stopping them, it was the same criticism that he got that Shakur's getting right now. But we remember Floyd throughout his whole career. We rate Floyd based on what he did in his career, and what he did in his career was something special. What he was doing as a junior lightweight and a lightweight, you know, and when he did 140 and stuff, when he did things in those fights, when he was stopping guys in those fights, we remember that there was never a point in Shakur's career where he was ever stopping anybody, you know, even down at featherweight. He just was never doing it. He'll get some here and there, but he was never like stopping guys and just beating them up like the way Floyd was doing at the lower divisions. But as a welterweight, Floyd wasn't really stopping guys neither, you know, and then he had some boring performances. Everybody hated the Manny Pacquiao fight. You know, he didn't stop Andre Berto, but everybody was pissed off he fought him. He was dominated Berto, but if you look at it, Floyd Mayweather against Andre Berto, against Robert Guerrero, and a few other fighters at 147 was exactly what Shakur is doing in every fight right now. So he's always going to get criticized. I don't know what he can do at this point to improve his power. But I'll tell you one thing. He can still do it at a high level. William Zepeda, I love the fight because he sat in the pocket. He traded at times. He got hit at times. He gave the fight everybody was claiming that he couldn't give. But in response to that, I will say this. A lot of that was based off a narrative that was being pushed. And the narrative was that he was a runner. And even though he did terrible in the Edward De Los Santos fight, he said he was injured. That was the one fight where he ran. The one fight. All the other fights, people said that he was boring just because he couldn't stop guys. But the narrative was that he ran. Even Turkey Al-Sheikh himself was calling these fights Tom and Jerry fights. He was talking about making the ring smaller. But he didn't have to make the ring smaller because Shakur stood in the pocket. He stood right there with him, and he proved to the world that he could take a fighter that throws 1,200 punches in a fight and continue to make him miss and make him pay without having to move. So he proved that. So what he did that night was impressive to me because he proved, and when I say prove, a lot of people that's pushing his narrative already hate him. So you're proving to people that are not going to like you anyway, right? Let's be real. But at least he did that. But at the end of the day, he's still going to get criticized no matter what, especially when you're not stopping fighters. And there was never a point where he was stopping fighters. But I think what Shakur is doing is winning the fight. That's the most important thing. He's winning the fight and took some punches. I don't think William Zepeda is the biggest puncher. I think he's more of a puncher that is just overwhelming. You know, he's a volume puncher, right? So he's not the hardest puncher. I think there's guys in the division like Abdullah Mason, like a Floyd Schofield, that I think, you know, Tank Davis, those guys hit much harder than William Zepeda, you know? Especially Tank. He's proven at a higher level that he hits harder. William Cepeda is stopping guys by being relentless. All right, so it's a different type of thing. I thought stylistically this matchup favored Shakur all the way, and that was part of the reason why I thought he was going to stop him. Another thing is 10th round. Once I saw him look up at the clock, I was like, yeah, he's not going to try to finish this guy. We called that out in the 10th round. And, I knew at that point, like, all right, he's done everything he could. All right. So I'm not going to criticize the guy because he's taking the wins and he's doing what he's supposed to do. All right. And he tried to make it as entertaining as he could. He didn't have to do it. He did what Floyd Mayweather did against Miguel Cotto. I said this on the live. He did what Floyd Mayweather did against Marcus Maidana in the first fight. He could have done what he did in the rematch with Maidana, but he did not. He decided that he wasn't going to make it an entertaining fight. I'm talking about Floyd. He decided in that fight that he's not going to make it entertaining. So he moved more. He made it an easy night for himself. And that's the thing about Shakur. And there's a fine line of trying to please the fans and winning the smart way. And some of the things that we were talking about, me and my dad were going back and forth about, was like, okay, is this a stupid way to fight because he's trying to prove to the public that he can fight this type of fight? Is this dumb or is it smart? Because if he caught a shot that actually hurt him and he got knocked down or ended up getting knocked out, then everybody would have been saying, yo, he was overrated all this time, where he could have just clearly outpointed him without having to be so reckless. So there's a line where he has to choose, where does he want to go here? Is he going to fight like this every fight? No, I don't believe so. I think he did it against the right opponent because William Cepeda is defensively irresponsible. He has to be. Why? Because he throws so many punches. His strength, his offense is his defense. So Shakur picked the right person to fight like that against. But if he were to fight Tank Davis, if he were to fight Adela Mesa, if he were to fight Floyd Schofield or some of the other fighters in the division, he's not gonna take that approach, especially so early in the fight. He's not gonna do that, especially in the first round. Usually the first round, especially for the higher level guys, like the high level boxing IQ guys like Crawford or Canelo, like those guys usually fill you out in the first round. Shakur started off fast, and I think that a lot of that had to do with what people were saying out there. All right. So moving forward, what I think Shakur should do, the division is fresh. A lot of guys done moved up. He doesn't have to worry about Keyshawn because they never wanted to fight each other anyway. Keyshawn's going up to 40. He dropped the belt. So his belt is vacant. Right? Abdullah Mason has moved his way up to the top very quickly, and he's going to be getting a title shot in his very next fight against Sam Noakes. That belt will be on the line. I forgot which belt that was. I know Shakur has a WBC. Lomachenko had the IBF. I think that is the one that Andy Cruz. Okay, IBF belongs to Raymond Morataya. IBF is him now. Right? He's getting email elevated because Lomachenko retired. So he's going to have to defend that against Andy Cruz immediately. Then we got the WBO side, which was Keyshawn's belt. But now Sam Noakes and, what's this guy? What did they say? Abdullah Mason is going to be fighting each other. I believe he's going to go out to the UK to fight him. And then you have Tank Davis. Have no idea what the hell he's doing. I don't know what's going on. He has more domestic issues. He got locked up again. They're saying that the fight with Lamont Roach is getting pushed back. I have no idea what's going on with Tank Davis. To be honest, I never thought the rematch was really going to happen. I still don't think the rematch is going to happen, even if they give us a new date. I'll see it when they are both in the ring, all right, or they do a press conference the week of the fight, then I'll believe it. But I just don't believe it. I don't know what Tank is doing right now. But he has the WBA strap. So the WBA strap is his. Raymond Morataya, Andy Cruz is going to be for IBF. Shakur holds the WBC. And then the WBO, you got Abdullah Mesa and Sam Noakes fighting for that title soon. This division is fresh. Shakur is not even the youngest guy anymore. Just like that, a few years go by and you got a new crop of fresh, hungry young fighters. The way I look at it was with Shakur, Abdullah Mesa might be a problem very soon. I don't think he's as skilled as Shakur. Okay? I don't think that. But I think he's very disciplined. He hits hard. And he's improving with each and every fight. I don't think he can beat Shakur now. But I'm not mad at the fact that him and his family, his father, his team, they're not trying to make friends with Keyshawn. They wasn't trying to make friends with Shakur. They're not trying to be friendly with everybody. They have one goal, and they're going strictly with that goal. No messing around, not getting into any trouble, not doing any antics. Okay, these guys are as solid as they come. And when your mind is like that, that guy is going to be a problem for that division soon enough. Do I think it's a little too early for a title shot? I do. I do think it's a little early for a title shot, but it's not the hardest title shot. I got to look a little bit more into Sam Noakes. So when the time comes, I will do a breakdown for that fight. But Abdullah Mason has a lot of potential. I know he's been dropped, but I seen him in a Nakatiya fight that he's becoming a lot more mature in that ring with every fight, each and every fight. So you got to be on the lookout for him. Also, Schofield. I know Schofield, they were supposed to fight. He got sick out in Saudi Arabia. Fight didn't happen. It was supposed to happen earlier this year. But Schofield went out and knocked Tevin Farmer out with a few punches. Schofield is dangerous. And this is the one thing that I will say about Schofield and Mason and even Tank. When you don't have punching power, but you can knock guys, when you go to decision, you can clear rounds like the way Shakur does. The longer the fight goes, whenever the fight is not over, and it's not over until it's over, guys like Tank, guys like Raymond Murataya or Floyd Schofield or Abdullah Mason, guys that can punch but may not be as good as you as a boxer all the way, they're always going to be dangerous. They're always going to be dangerous. And I don't feel like outside of De Los Santos was the best pure boxer that Shakur Stevenson fought that had dangerous power. The only one. So I'm still curious, as even though he's one of my favorite fighters, I'm still curious how he's going to do against a fighter like those three that I just mentioned and beat them, but in a way where it might not be exactly how the way Cepeda is, but it won't be like the way he was against Edgar De Los Santos. I don't want to see that. I don't think any of us want to see that kind of fight again. We don't want to see that kind of fight again, right? But I don't expect him to fight like that against, like he did against Cepeda, against those other guys that have power, that are boxers, because you got to focus on being more defensive. You can't trade with those dudes. Those guys will knock you out if you get caught. So I want to see those kind of fights. I think the division is so good right now. It's so fresh that you don't have like a lot of 30-year-old fighters no more. Guys like Jamel Herring, guys like Lomachenko, all those guys are gone. Like those guys are like, they're done. This division right now is popping. Everybody's in their 20s. Everybody's fresh. Everybody is in their primes or getting close to their primes. They're on the way up. So it's the perfect time for Shakur to prove to the doubters that he's really that dude. Because if you start beating guys like Floyd Schofield and you start unifying like against Abdullah Mason, and if you get the super fight with Tank Davis, if Tank can find a way to stay out of trouble, nobody can say anything about you. We don't have to make that comparison like I did earlier with Floyd about, he looks like he's close to Floyd, but these fighters are not, the fighters that Floyd was fighting, and he's not stopping them in a way that Floyd. But if he's doing it and he's unified and he becomes undisputed, you know how people talk about how, oh, Crawford's undisputed run at 40 was too easy, this guy's undisputed run was easy. No, this is not a easy undisputed run. If he makes this undisputed run right now, this is not an easy undisputed run. These guys are in their primes. We can't make that excuse like these guys, they're old and this, that, and the third. We can't do that here. So I think he should stick to 135. I know he likes to, guys like Richardson, and he just did an interview with Conor Ben. Like, I understand those big money fights, but you have a big money fight. First of all, you're going to get paid. You're fighting with Turkey. You're going to get paid to fight Schofield. You're going to get paid to fight Mason. And you might get paid crazy amount of money if Tank eventually be like, I'll fight you. It might happen. It might not happen. So we just got to be patient. We got to see. I also look at it and talk too much about it, but I like Andy Cruz too. Raymond Muay. Those are good fights. These are good fights. And at some point, you're not only going to get the bag, but people will start respect you beating these guys. All right? But those guys are a little bit more dangerous than Cepeda, in my opinion. All right? And I don't know what Edwin De Los Santos is doing, but I like to see that dude again. I want him to come back. I want him to come back in a well-prepped camp where he's not getting drained. He needs to get back in the ring because I don't want to see that talent to go away. I want to see him in the mix with those guys I just named. All right. Anyway, I think I said everything I needed to say about Shakur Stevenson moving forward, talking about Floyd, talking about all the other fighters in the division, his style. I don't think he's ever going to be a knockout artist. He relies too much on defense, and that's cool. But I just don't want two extremes. Cepeda, extremely in the pocket. Didn't have to be, but he had something to prove. In Santos, I don't want to see that again. I know he had an injury. I never want to see a performance like that again. No running, but no reckless fighting either. I think he can find a sweet middle in there where he can box his ass off and be defensive too. You know what I mean? Without overly using the ring. All right. Subscribe to the channel. Hit the smash the like button. I hope you enjoy the content, and I'll see you guys soon. Y'all have a good day. Peace.